I'd like to call to order the Open Spaces, Parks, and Rec Commission meeting. First, I'd like to read the land acknowledgement. The land that Eureka rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Jarujiji. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The city of Eureka acknowledged the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates the city's commitment to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, you can have a roll call. Okay. Commissioner Parks? Commissioner Brenner?
Here.
Commissioner Bareilles?
Here.
Commissioner Houghton?
Here.
Commissioner Malik? Commissioner Sims?
Here.
And Commissioner Mays?
Here.
Thank you.
And now we're going to do the oath of office for Jack. And stand. I, and please state your name,
I, Jack Bareilles,
do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California and the Charter of the City of Eureka, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter in the capacity of Commissioner for Open Space, Parks, and Recreation Commission of the City of Eureka. Say, I agree, or I will.
I will.
And now you can sign it, and I will sign it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, hello, Florence. Okay,
That's you.
that's me. All right. Next, we will approve the minutes from February 27, 2025, the regular meeting as submitted. Are there any questions, correction, or comments from the commission on the minutes for the February 27, 2025 meeting?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from the February 27th meeting.
First, we
Oh,
need
sorry.
to ask for public comment, correct?
On the minutes? Okay.
Is there any public comment regarding the approval of the minutes from the February 27, 2025 meeting? Does not appear to be so. Since there's no comment, now we will return to the commission for a motion, second, and a vote. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
A second?
I'll second.
Please vote.
Aye.
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 And the motion passes, and we've approved the minutes. Are there any commission reports? Okay. And this is the time for public comments, correct? I'm going to be asking for public comment. Do I first read this section? Okay, this section of the meeting provides the public an opportunity to address the commission on any subject not appearing on the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Open Space, Parks, and Recreation Commission cannot take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Oral communications from each person addressing the commission will be allowed 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission at this time?
You have to push the button.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I just got a question. I live next to the Gulch at 15th and M, where they put the other culvert, third culvert in. I've been down in that gulch since about 1973 when I moved in. And I'm just wondering how the coho salmon are supposed to lay their eggs in sand when they need gravel. And that's my question. Sand, they'll just float away. Anybody got a answer for me? I've been down since they finished it too, and it's sand. Because it used to be called Sandy Gulch. It's not on the map anymore. It's not on the internet. But when I moved in 73, it was called Sandy Gulch because it's sandy. Anybody got an answer?
It's a public comment period, but if you give me your contact information, I will forward that on to somebody who's worked on that project.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. We're not supposed to, we're just supposed to.
It's not a question and answer.
I didn't know that.
Okay. But if you
Whoops.
give me your info, I will pass that on to the project manager who worked on that, and they can contact you through email or however you like. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Yeah. We're gonna set a presentation.
Oh, okay.
I had a cougar come up in my gulch in 2023 and just lay down in my yard. And I got to record him, and it was just beautiful.
Thanks.
So yeah, my only company is basically the beautiful creature.
Oh, right, while she's talking.
And it was so garbaged up.
Is there anyone else who wants to make a public comment at this time? Please come forward. Please state your name and where you live.
Hi, my name's Stan Schaefer. Live at 2365 15th Street, adjacent to, on two sides of my property to Gulch.
Okay, welcome.
My house was built way before this ordinance. I probably would not be allowed to be built because of its adjacency to such an area. I've been a homeowner for 20 plus years. I worked for the city of Arcata, including part of the time overseeing environmental services department. I was at my first Gulch meeting in 2005, where I was encouraged for usage and ownership of the Gulch, and boy did I. My native tree planting is well over 100 trees. The DBH, I think it is, well over 24 inches on a few of the redwoods. Had extreme success, but through that there was a lot of failure due to bindweed and various other invasive species that have been removed. A lot of manual labor has been gone towards that. Basically, I'm speaking in the hope that there's no blanket policy here, that there are some exceptions to the rule as far as I have overplanted, extremely well, way overplanted, and trees have to be removed at times. So hopefully there's some exception, but not a blanket policy. Occasionally, it's hard to admit, but I have used a few herbicides for bindweed control as well. That being said, I have breeding western giant salamanders on my property. I have numerous species of dragonfly that are in the summertime. So I very much love the environment. Hawks, owl feces in my yard, everything. So, very much an advocate. Look forward to working with the city any way I can. I have some ideas for some improvements in my neighborhood. Would love to eventually speak with those. I have a meeting set up hopefully here soon with Kristen, and thank you very much for your time and what you're doing on the committee. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Stan.
your comment.
I just want to remind folks that we're going to have a presentation coming soon about the greenways and gulches, and then there'll be a public comment on that specifically right after too. So you may have more comments after that, and then if there's anyone else that wanted to come up with anything that's not on the agenda, for public comment. We're still open.
No other public comments at this time? Is there anyone on Zoom tonight?
There's a whole bunch of people, but nobody has their hands raised. So-
Okay. If there's no further public comment, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Old business, Yas Park Improvement Project, and I see that Robin isn't here.
I'll be taking that on tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so we're still moving along with Yas construction. We're making some successful strides. If you've been by there, you can definitely see the playground layout. I don't know why I'm coming on the speaker back there. Okay, we've had definitely some impact due to rain, and we've been dewatering, and that's holding up some of like our pour in place rubber safety surfacing and some grading and things like that. But we're moving along. We did have a volunteer planting last month that was very successful, or earlier this month, sorry. And so we got a lot of our plants done. So thank you to all the folks that showed up to help with that, including some commissioners. And we got it cardboarded and stapled down, and we just got mulch on there, and it looks really wonderful. And wonderful native plants and some trees that we actually we're able to do some cost savings through that planting, as well as a donation of some plants through another project that had some leftovers, native plants that we were calling for in our project. So that was wonderful. We will bring some photos to the next meeting. And like I said, if you get a chance to drive by there, peek through the fence and take a look at it.
Are there any questions or comments for the staff on this? Mic on.
Let me try again. Okay. User error. But I brought my mentee by the park, and she's around 12 years old, just under that. She'll be 12 on the 4th. And she was so excited, even at the age of 12, looking at that egret. And I've heard countless kids so excited about the unveiling. So thank you everyone for your work on that and making it so original to our community. And I think it's just going to last the test of time. So really excited about the unveiling, but we understand the weather. We can't control that. So please send Robin our gratitude for her continued work on
Definitely
that
will.
project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for that update. Now we'll move on to new business. The Gulch and Greenway draft ordinance and mapping and tree removal draft ordinance. Kristen Kenyon is the Director of Developmental Services. And here she is.
Hi, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for having me. I'm Kristen Kenyon. I'm Director of Development Services, which is planning, building, and code enforcement. And presenting tonight on a draft Gulch Greenway ordinance, and I prepared a PowerPoint. Derek?
Is that the right one he's asking?
Yes.
Yes.
Derek's the best. All right. So if you look at an aerial image of Eureka, you see the street grid, and then you see these green fingers that are cutting across and disrupting the urban fabric. Those are our Gulch greenways. They're the vegetated areas within and adjacent to valleys and ravines, and they contain wetlands and water courses that eventually flow to Humboldt Bay. And this map shows the city boundary in a black dotted line and the coastal zone in a blue overlay. And this planning effort is focused on the portion of the Gulch Greenways that are located within the city boundary and outside or inland of the coastal zone. These include Cooper Gulch, Second or McFarland Gulch, and the gulches of Martin Slough. Cooper and Second flow north towards Eureka Slough, and then the gulches of Martin Slough flow south towards Elk River and then Humboldt Bay. So what is the goal of this planning effort? The general plan is the city's guiding planning document, and we adopted a new one in 2018 called the 2040 General Plan because it looks forward towards 2040, and it includes a policy to prepare and adopt Gulch Greenway preservation and management guidelines that identify and protect sensitive species habitat and the hydrologic capacity of Eureka's Gulch Greenways. And so when we adopted the general plan, we had to prepare an environmental impact report under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. And in that, we talked about how there was no significant impacts of our planned growth and build out of the city through 2040, in part because of this policy, that we wouldn't have impacts on wildlife movement, riparian habitat, sensitive species, and biological resources. So to be consistent with our environmental document, we really need to move forward and implement this policy. So here's the map showing the Gulch Greenway areas by zoning district. The yellow is low density residential. 60% of the land in the Gulch Greenway areas is low density residential. Well, it's residential. There's a little bit of medium and high, but it's predominantly low density residential. And in residential zoning districts right now, only building permits are required for residential structures. And development is allowed by right if it's consistent with our objective code standards. And we currently don't have any objective code standards having to do with protection of habitat, other than we have a tree removal ordinance, which I'll get into, and we have some other, like we have stormwater and erosion control requirements. So there's no trigger for discretionary review or CEQA, and without environmental standards or discretionary review, the city has no regulatory tools to prevent people from further fragmenting and degrading the habitat with development. And so in 2022, the city began the process of preparing a Gulch Greenway ordinance, and we conducted a virtual public workshop and had a big public survey. We published a draft ordinance and mapping methodology, which was reviewed by OSPR in April and May of 2022, and by Planning Commission at a special study session in May of 22. And then the ordinance stalled, the effort stalled, largely because the 2022 version of the draft ordinance did not allow for residential development in the Gulch Greenway management area. And the city had concerns that this would conflict with State Housing Crisis Act, which is a state law that forbids the city from reducing residential capacity until the Crisis Act expires in 2030. So the city has a housing element as part of our general plan that gets certified by the state, demonstrating how we are going to meet our regional housing needs allocation, which is currently, the state and then the regional government assigned us an allocation of 952 new housing units that we need to build during this housing element cycle between 2019 and 2027. And in our housing element, we had to explain how we were going to get that done, and including identifying vacant sites that were available for development with housing. And so if you map the vacant sites that are identified in our housing element with the Gulch Greenways, a lot of the sites overlap. So 65 of the parcels that are implicated by the Gulch Greenway ordinance are specifically identified in our housing element as evidence that the city can meet our regional housing needs allocation. And so that really drew concern, and we stopped for a while, but then council at their 2023-2024 strategic visioning, they said, hey, we really want to prioritize getting this Gulch Greenway ordinance done. And they had a special study session in October of 2024 where we talked about how we could revise the ordinance. And then we used that feedback. I worked with a number of consultants to help rewrite the ordinance and redo the mapping. And we published a revised draft ordinance in March of 2025. The new ordinance doesn't prohibit housing. It allows it. It just has to go through a discretionary process to mitigate and minimize impacts. So the draft ordinance, which was included in your agenda packet, it has definitions, permit requirements, permitting process, and then it has a list of standards. And the standards are mostly things that are already required of development, and it's referencing different sections of our code, like limiting work, like limiting the timing of when you can work in seasonal wetlands, complying with our existing erosion and sediment control and stormwater standards, and outdoor lighting standards, and invasive species prohibition standards, and then limiting vegetation removal during the bird nesting season, and a few other standards. So for different types of development, the Gulch Greenway ordinance draft identifies different types of permitting that would be required, from nothing for something like removal of invasive vegetation to discretionary permits. So a zoning clearance is just an administrative review that happens at the staff level. Somebody submits a building permit, it'll get routed to planning, who will then make sure that what's being proposed is consistent with the standards. So that's no extra cost or time. It's just an additional referral. Then the minor and conditional Gulch Greenway permits, those involve noticing and making findings of consistency with some criteria, which I'll get into. And so they are more expensive and difficult processes. And they also both trigger the California Environmental Quality Act, because whenever the city takes a discretionary action or has a discretionary permit on a private development project, that triggers CEQA for the project. Whereas CEQA isn't triggered for private projects if there's no city discretion involved. That's a lot to digest, sorry.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the top two there, you don't have to go back, but the top two don't trigger CEQA. The bottom two bullets could trigger CEQA.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. All right. So back in 2022, we tried to precisely map the resource area. And that proved to be difficult. And actually, because it's defined in part to be where wetlands are, you really can't know that without a site-specific investigation, which would be infeasible at a citywide level. So the new mapping just maps parcels as being part of this overlay. So, and then to find out whether it's so the overlay is just a catch. It catches your parcel. It'll get flagged if you come in for a building permit. And then whether or not additional permitting is necessary has to do with, we'll have to look specifically at your parcel, probably with a site visit. Maybe we can tell by an aerial whether or not you might have resources and actually have Gulch Greenway management area as defined on your parcel. So the consultant who mapped the parcels, he looked at, he mapped 20% slopes, and then he did a buffer upslope of that break-in slope, and then flagged all the parcels that intersected with that, and that's how we got the overlay. He also looked at tree canopy, FEMA floodplains, and streams. And all of the parcels that got mapped, we sent a postcard to. And so the Gulch Greenway overlay zone applies to the parcel, but then the management area is only the parts of the parcel where they have slopes of 20% or greater, wetlands, stream channel or 500-year floodplain, riparian habitat to the edge of the drip line, based on our most recent aerial photography, which is from 2023, or if somebody has evidence from then till now, that would also work. A buffer of 100 feet from wetlands and 50 feet beyond the edge of the riparian drip line or break and slope, whichever is greater. So in this picture, the break and slope is further, so that would be the edge, and then you'd go 50 feet from that, and that would be the Gulch Greenway management area, and then the rest of the parcel would not be in the Gulch Greenway management area. And then the ordinance also includes exclusion for if you have an improved outdoor area or a legally established structure that's located in the buffer, that's exempt. It's not part of the Gulch Greenway management area. Because there's a lot of parcels in Eureka that are developed right up to the break and slope. So you're grandfathered in, you know, if you're above the break and slope, all of your improved yard area and your existing structures are not part of the Gulch Greenway management area. So this is Little Saplings. It's developed all the way up to the break and slope. That building and the yard would not be in the GGMA. So if you're outside of the GGMA, but you're in the overlay, everything's permitted by right or with the zoning clearance. And the only thing different is that we would be referring that to California Department of Fish and Wildlife if they wanted to comment on it or recommend things. And then you'd have to follow those standards in subpart E of the ordinance that talk about invasive species and bird nesting season and stuff like that. If you're within the GGMA, that's when you're potentially triggering discretionary permitting that would then trigger CEQA. Right now, so now I'm going to talk about our tree removal regulations and how this ordinance would affect them. Sorry, regulating the environment is extremely difficult and complicated, and yeah, it's a tough one. So protected trees right now, our tree ordinance only applies to protected trees. There's a list of 23 species, and then they must be 24 inches in diameter or greater to meet the definition of protected. And you're allowed to remove 5. If you're removing 5 or fewer protected trees, you just need an administrative tree permit. If you're removing more than 5 in a 10-year period, you need a conditional use permit. So these are our existing regulations, except you can remove any number of trees by right if they're within 15 feet of the footprint of a proposed structure or within the boundary of an associated access road with a zoning clearance under approved building permit. So you can come in, get a building permit for a house and a road, and then you can remove any number of trees that you want by right in that area. Also, you can remove any number of trees by right if an arborist or a registered professional forester says they're hazardous or hinder sunlight to solar energy systems. You just need a zoning clearance, and then you can remove protected trees. Under the proposed tree removal regulations, protected trees, we'd get rid of the list of species, and it would be any tree native to coastal Northern California. And outside of the GGMA, we'd still have that 24-inch diameter requirement, whereas inside the GGMA, there would be no size requirement. And that was something that CDFW, we worked closely with them on the draft, and they proposed that. But I here stand the public commenter that some people do want to just remove smaller trees to keep larger trees like healthier and culls. So that's something that that's a weakness of this draft. So outside the GGMA, tree removal would be regulated as it was before, except we're getting rid of the conditional use permit trigger, and you just need a zoning clearance for tree removal. Inside the GGMA, you'd need a discretionary Gulch Greenway permit approval for most tree removal, unless the trees are hazardous or you're removing non-native trees without herbicide and wheeled mechanized equipment. And so the required findings for a Gulch Greenway conditional permit would be that, as they're written currently in the draft, the project complies with applicable standards. The project minimizes and mitigates impacts to fish and wildlife habitat and movement corridor values to the extent feasible. The project minimizes risk of damage to development both on and outside the subject property from erosion, flooding, and fire hazards. And the project protects the water quality and hydrology of Humboldt Bay and its tributaries. And one thing, there's definitely been a lot of questions about how this relates to the Beta Zoo Trail, because a lot of people just got notice for the Beta Zoo Trail, and then they also got notice for the Gulch Greenway ordinance. And really, they don't have anything to do with each other, really, because weirdly enough, which I find funny, our zoning code explicitly exempts city projects from having to comply with the zoning code. That's at the first chapter of our zoning code. So the city doesn't come to itself for zoning clearances. Of course, we still, whenever we do a project, it triggers CEQA, and we try to be as consistent as possible with all of our standards to like not be a hypocrite, but we don't, this ordinance is not going to affect or be affected by the Beta Zoo Trail, which is a city project. Also, there's some large parcels in the Gulch Greenway owned by the school district, and the school district doesn't typically come to the city for building permits. They go through the State Office of Public School Construction. So this ordinance also wouldn't be able to regulate the school district. And so there's the next steps after coming here would be going to the Planning Commission, and then the City Council would be the ultimate decision makers on adoption of the ordinance. Because there's over 1,000 implicated parcels, those hearings will be noticed in the newspaper. And so if anybody, I also have a mailing list with like over 500 emails. So if anybody else wants to get on the mailing list, you can sign up on our website. Just Google City of Eureka Gulch Greenway, and you can get to the website and sign up to get on the mailing list, or you can email me directly. And then I'll also be sending out emails to the mailing list as new drafts happen and before public hearings. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. This is a question to the commissioners. Are there any questions or comments for city staff on these draft regulations and mapping? Barbara?
Hi, I'm Barbara Brenner, and I live up at the top of Cooper Gulch, and I really appreciate all the efforts that go into this. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and you've really stuck with it, because it was, I remember it was your project in 2022, and moving forward with that. So I agree that its time has come, and I'm glad that all these folks are here to be heard about, how to make it better, how to make it functional, and how to make it work. My question is, I realize the term discretionary permit is like a term of art within, and it gives the city the ability to say yes or no on something. But I mean, do you foresee that gives the ability to go against the findings clearly? I mean, if you've got a set of findings, do they have the discretion to still say, oh, well, let's do it anyway?
No. So Yeah, there's a lot of state case law about quasi-judicial decisions, and which are like when you have a law and then you're applying it to a specific case, which is what this is. There'll be like a law, the ordinance, and you'll be applying it to a specific application for a project, for a permit. You have to, your decision has to be based on those findings, and you have to have written analysis explaining how the evidence led to the findings. So it's like you have to do a lot more legwork than you would in a legislative action where you're just like, oh, it's in the public good, I'm going to adopt this ordinance. When you're actually going to apply it to a specific case, you do have to be really careful about tying your decision to the findings.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be reassured on that.
Yeah, the thing is, the findings are subjective, right? They're like minimize impacts, and that's what makes it discretionary, is that it's not a objective finding that everybody would interpret the same way.
Right, and I think that that's been pretty well presented, and someone here tonight's probably going to speak to that, the Clarks, that a memo or a letter that we have here that talks about there's a number of those really subjective terms, and I hear what they're saying. I at some point, qualified professionals' opinions should be required, and then that way it would give the commissioners, the planning commissioners, are the people that are going to end up making this decision, or is it staff, or how's that working?
Yeah, so for a conditional Gulch Greenway permit, that would be a notice public hearing before the Planning Commission. For a minor Gulch Greenway permit, it would be a staff level decision, but then we'd send out a notice to property owners within 300 feet saying, hey, we're going to be making this decision unless somebody requests a public hearing. And then if somebody requested a public hearing, then we would have a public hearing before the Planning Commission. The tricky part of requiring a professional to be involved on every case is that a lot of what people do in the single family residential zone is pretty insignificant, like just adding a fence or something. And California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we'd refer all the projects to them, and they are local in Eureka, and they're happy to go on site visits. And then we're saving the property owner like $20,000 of having to prepare a biological report if them and us and CDFW can come to an agreement about what they're doing and how they're going to do it. That's why it doesn't explicitly say in every case you're going to need a biological report.
Thank you.
Ms. Kenyon, is that the current way, or is that what's the current way right now? If I apologize, I'd love a concrete example, even a hypothetical concrete example of you were talking about where Fish and Wildlife might be brought in, and if a consensus, okay, this is okay, but can you give me some kind of hypothetical so I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around?
Yeah, sure. So before this ordinance, somebody come in and say, hey, I just purchased this property, has these like old growth Sitka spruce on it and a steep slope. Here's my building plans. I'm going to build a house and it's engineered properly. And we're like, go for it. And then later on, we get a call from CDFW or the regional board, and they're like, what the heck? They've done all this work and we're like, well, they didn't need a local permit and they didn't know to go to you. Now, under the ordinance, somebody would come in, say, like, they want to do a minor subdivision of a giant lot in 2-4, and we'd go visit the site with them in CDFW, and we'd say, okay, here's clearly, this area is clearly not wetlands and it's upland, and and would you be and there's the riparian drip line. Would you be comfortable putting on your parcel map a buffer of 50 feet from that and preventing any building footprints in that area and building a fence? And they would agree to it, and we put it on the parcel map and get that recorded. And that would be a way to potentially avoid a biological report and detailed
No, thank you.
expense.
That makes and this process you talked about, this is going back to the 4 bullets. This is non-triggering of CEQA, or would this potentially bring CEQA into play?
Yeah, so anytime a conditional Gulch Greenway permit or minor Gulch Greenway permit, that would trigger CEQA. And then once CEQA is triggered, there's certain projects that they qualify for an exemption from the need to prepare an environmental document. And so that would be like small restoration projects. If what you were doing was just like managing vegetation in a way that was conducive to wildlife and habitat, then potentially you could get a Gulch Greenway permit for that, and we could exempt it under that small restoration project exemption. But if you are going to be implicating like sensitive species, that would bump you out of CEQA. I can't think of a CEQA exemption it wouldn't bump you out of.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Yeah, just a quick question about your plans for for a public hearing. Do you already have one scheduled? When would that be, or is it just going to be by need?
The public hearing to adopt the ordinance, this tentative schedule is to go to Planning Commission in May and City Council in June. But then if the ordinance gets adopted and then somebody triggers a permit, they would apply for the permit, and then we have the state has this Permit Streamlining Act that means that we have to figure out if the applications are complete or not in 30 days, and then we have 90 days to figure out the CEQA and go to hearing.
One last question, I promise, and that is, under the current status quo, or the way we've been doing business, how often do people have to get permits if there's a number, or if there's not an exact, if the number's not about 100 a year, how many more permits are we talking about if this is triggered? Is this going to increase it by 5% or 200%? Or you won't be precise, but if you can be in the ballpark, just as a speculation, I'd appreciate it.
We mostly just get building permits because we're largely built out, we mostly just get building permits for already improved yard areas. And very few building permits come in, but they still do, it's still something that comes up on, gosh, it's hard to know, but it is going to increase our permitting burden for sure.
So example of something that might need a permit that wouldn't be before, we kind of heard earlier, is that if someone wanted to use an herbicide in that district, it would create a need for a permit.
Correct. If you were removing invasive species with herbicide, you're in the actual management area, it would then trigger the need for a minor Gulch Greenway permit.
Any further discussion from the commission? If there's no further discussion, now it's time to ask for public comment. Each public comment speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment on this? Welcome to the commission. Can you please state your name and where you live?
My name is Mike Munson. I live at 1384 Nigel Lane, which is most of the gulch between Cooper's Gulch and the Eureka High School.
Hi, Mike.
I think I'm probably the single biggest parcel owner in the city limits. I can't verify that for sure, but almost all of my property is in in the Greenway. I have a number of issues with this. Going back to the original study on this, on how many feet from the top of the riparian, most of the recommendations were much less than what the council came up with here as far as how many feet to come back. So I'm very curious how that happened when the study was done. There was recommendations in the study. I think it said something like 222 people out of the 1,700 responded to that. And I have a hard time believing that that's true as well. I've never seen 222 people or 200 people respond to anything, any of those ever. So I would have to ask, are these people actually in these greenways? Are these people that are, looking to further this cause along who really don't have a vested interest in this? So I really have to question what, the validity is there. The number one thing, that gets me, and we talked about this a little bit, was the discretionary part of this. I think this really needs to be defined. I cannot imagine you guys can push this through at this point, with the language that's in there and recommend that the city pushes forward. But the biggest thing to me is the hypocrisy here. They want to put the trail right through the middle of my property with no CEQA, but I have to go through CEQA. It's just, it's do as I say, not as I do. This is, very troublesome for me. When I look at the maps, my parcel's here. All of my parcel is, below the red line, including all of my houses. The blue lines go through my houses. I really have to question, is this map that accurate? As far as how many, where the slope line actually is. You're looking at, trying to look through canopy and figure out where a slope line is. It's not accurate. So I think there needs to be a lot of work done there. You've got, talking about using mechanized equipment only part of the year. The way this is written, I couldn't even run mechanized equipment on my property at all. I'm down there 10 months a year working on this place. It would really handicap me. You look at the expense that it would cost me, the burden it would put on the city. We already have processes in place. This is why we have a building department, why we have to go through this permitting process. This is just a power grab on top of an already existing process that works. And my main question really is, where have we ever had a problem? This is unneeded, unnecessary. It's encumbersome. It's a power grab. I encourage you not to push this forward in its current state.
Thank you. And I do encourage you with your questions to reach out to staff, because this is not a question and answer session. Are there any other public comments? Welcome. Please state your name and where you live.
It's right here. Good evening. My name is Chris Nelson. I reside at 1252 East Avenue in Eureka. I'm at the corner of 13th and East. And this particular situation, while part of the question has been answered tonight in regard to where my property sits, as far as potentially not being required, I do notice that the 50-foot overlay includes about 2/3 of my parcel. My concern is at this point, my yard is somewhat removed up from the cross section, which has the actual drainage or riparian gulch. But the biggest issue that I have right now is that with a concrete retaining wall on two sides that is up off the ground about 4 feet, I am concerned that if there were to be any movement in this ordinance requiring to have any kind of removal done would become very onerous. I'm not so concerned about the overall situation. I understand the need for the buffer zones. I'm concerned more about needing then, if we have to get permits to maintain our yards every year, that's going to get pretty onerous over time. And I just feel that I am uncomfortable with it. I understand that the city needs to take action on certain things, but I do believe that the language is somewhat vague. I appreciate your clarification in regard to possibly not being in the zone, but with the overlay. My other question was whether or not the overlays are going to be recorded or put as easements on people's title. That could be an issue that could cloud title for people, especially when it comes to transactions for sales of real estate. So with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate the ability to comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission at this time? Welcome. Please state your name and where you live.
My name is Nick Hansen. I live at 3427 O Street. And I had a couple questions. One of them was on the existing, so it was stated that existing properties would be grandfathered in. and any developed yard would be left as is. And so I guess one of my questions is that grandfathered in for the current owner or in perpetuity, for one? The other one was, I think it was conditional or minor permits trigger the CEQA. So if any tree removal or a lot of the things that are listed on here could potentially trigger CEQA. I mean, like for example, the fences and walls, right? Conditional Gulch Greenway permit. I mean, that could potentially, in my opinion, start raising the price, right? A $5,000 fence might turn into, I think the environmental impact study was stated, I think it was $20,000. I don't know what an environmental impact study costs, but for an average homeowner, jumping from a $5,000 fence to a $25,000 fence, that's a huge jump. And then another thing, if the city's vision is to continue growing, especially affordable housing, if we're going to add additional costs to housing, that at the end of the day, that doesn't really make it affordable anymore. Because at the end of the day, if the cost of the housing costs more, then you can't make it affordable at that point. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this. Looking at my property specifically, where the border is on the slope, I'm backed up to Sequoia Park, and the slope starts right on the edge of my property. And the 50-foot buffer zone does come significantly in there. I know it's going to be grandfathered in, but even just repairing, I see right here, reconstructing existing structure, right? Firewood shed, outdoor shed that, just fixing minor things on it could turn into a significant cost just for an average homeowner. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Anyone else in the audience? Welcome. Please state your name and where you live.
My name is Robin Gray Stewart. I live on 3684 J Street, and our backyard is a goalie. And when this goalies came up for sale, the previous owner before us and the owners adjacent to us all bought up the land. I don't know what year that was, but it was before we owned the property. And they bought it up because they didn't want to see any development down there. And our neighbors just adore the wildness of this. And if you guys haven't walked these areas, you may not realize what an absolute treasure they are to our community. The amount of wildlife in our backyard is just incredible. Man, we see mother bears with 3 cubs tumbling around. We've seen our neighbors and us have seen like 3 cougars in the area, coyote, maybe 9 deer at a time, just on and on and on. The amount of wildlife that lives down there. And we really don't want to see any of that disturbed. And I just wanted you to understand how important these greenways are to our community. They are the treasure of Eureka. And I do want to also state that at times people have talked about putting public trails through our backyard, and we're a little dismayed at that and what it might do to the wildlife that lives down there. We've even talked about the possibility of making it a wildlife refuge of some point so that it would be more protected. And I don't know where that would fit into this plan because there was no mention of that. I was a little disturbed in the draft that it was talking about putting subdivisions in some of the greenways. I just feel like there's not that many greenways. And once you take one away, it's gone forever for all generations. And I think if it comes to housing, there's other alternatives. So I just wanted to go on record and making sure that you know just how wonderful these places are and how much we would like to see them preserved.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Hello there. Please state your name.
Live at 4242 Ivy Lane. I actually live in Cotton, not Eureka, but I'm doing stuff in Eureka all the time. So I belong to an organization called Ripe Redwood Invasive Plant Eradicators. We've spent about 1,900 hours last 2 years eradicating, especially English ivy. So I have a few comments. First off, the Gulch and Greenway's proposed ordinance makes references to the definition of invasive plants, and basically the definition there is anything that's rated as high in the Cal IPSI ratings. I wouldn't use that definition. It's not specific to our area. So I'm also on the HWMA Humboldt Weed Management area. And so we have our own ratings. that are specific to this area. Cotoneaster and English holly they don't have high ratings on Cal IPSI, and those are clearly invasive plants around here. The problem with using the HWMA definitions of invasive plants, like if you were going to use their high definition, the definitions there kind of work differently than the definitions for the Cal IPSI definitions, because not only is it invasive in the sense that it's a plant that's harmful, but the HWMA definition says that it's a invasive plant that could be eradicated. Like, so for example, English ivy is everywhere. Like, so that doesn't get a rating of high for the HWMA because, so anyway, I would just say any plant mentioned on the HWMA list of invasive plants should be the definition of an invasive plant. Another thing is, maybe we should consider a requirement that any English ivy on trees should be taken out. Like it's super easy to kill. All you have to do is cut around the base of the tree. RIPE has been to about 80 private residences. We just go there. It's like we're like a swarm of locusts falling onto the trees. We just cut around the base. Everything above it dies. So I've been in a lot of these gulches, and there's just so many dead trees that have ivy all over them. The gulch behind 15th Street, south of 15th Street, there's so many dead trees back there that have ivy all over them because the ivy took them down. So yeah, it would be really, really easy to have a requirement, just kill all the ivy on the trees, and we're happy to come and do it for free. So
Thank you, Carl. Sure. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, is there anyone? Oh, hello again.
Dan Schaefer, I'd like to just reiterate my concern that my overplanning on my slope, it is a severe slope. I don't know, but it is in that break off in the area you're talking about, that any native tree, I wouldn't have planted half the trees I planted if I'm going to have to get a permit to do anything with. And I'd love to show the committee, I'd love to show city staff what I'm referring to. So I have had ivy removal. I've had 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter. The sapsuckers came the next year. It was great. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone on Zoom? Oh, excuse me. Welcome. Please state your name, where you live.
Kelly Martin, 4058 Campton. Yeah, I have a couple concerns. One of them is the removing limbs and stuff in a certain time zone that you have specified on your paperwork. I live in middle of a bunch of redwood trees, and sometimes the limbs have to be removed. I have to have a tree guy come in, a special climber to come in and take the trees out, because I have a lot of grandkids running around. And I have a lot of open space that they use 100% of the property. But that'd be one of my concerns, because it's really a safety item. I have limbs coming down that are this big around off. They're not the trunk; it's actually a limb. And if they're busted off and they're hanging there, I mean, what am I going to do? Wait till the time frame before I can take it down, and then fence off that area so I can keep my grandkids out of there. And that's a serious concern, especially with the winds that we get here. Another concern I have is I think everybody should be told about this through the mail system instead of reading the paper. Half the people don't get the paper. I don't think that's a very accurate way of contacting people that have a property in these areas. And other than that, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? It doesn't appear that we have any more public comment here. Is there anyone on Zoom?
sorry, my speaker's on now. Brooke, if you're ready to speak, we can start your timer as soon as you're ready.
Hi, my name is Brooke DeMonte. My husband and I have lived at 2218 Boone Street for 23 years. We both have bachelor's degrees in natural resources management, so we've been managing our gulch this entire time, which I cannot say that the city has done the same or the hospital. So yeah, and maybe we could add to this ordinance to make it illegal to sell English ivy in the city, because it's really discouraging to spend all this time and effort to remove it when you can go to Schaefer's and then somebody in my neighborhood can just buy it, or in my gulch. So we are looking at maybe retiring soon, and the way that PG&E is raising their rates, we realized it was going to be very difficult to retire on the modest pensions of 2 civil servants. So we thought, well, what we could do is maybe get solar. And now it seems that the cost of that project is going to be increased significantly with the new tree ordinance, because we need to thin and remove some trees in order, because it's all south facing, in order to get solar access. So that's just a concern that we have, an unnecessary hardship for 2 people that have been doing the work of managing the gulch all these many years. I really wanted to thank Kristen. She helped me understand the ordinance. I'm still struggling, and the presentation was great. I'm still struggling to really understand how it's going to affect us. So I'll hopefully be able to talk with her in the future about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Anyone else on Zoom? Yes.
Stephen, you can go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I attended the first workshop and was a general supporter of this initiative based on its current draft. I don't support it at all. My biggest concerns are with the mapping. I just don't understand how some of this line work was created. I live in the neighborhood of 13th and S, near the back entrance of Cooper's Gulch, and where the line is, where there's the 20% break in slope, doesn't seem accurate to me. The distances from that doesn't seem accurate. Vegetation that's labeled as riparian vegetation doesn't seem accurate. And so I know there was aerial imagery interpretation. The way I interpret that is that there was no ground truthing at all. A really good example of some of the bizarre mapping is near the 3500 block of Union Street. There's a redwood tree in somebody's yard that's in between Kilgore and Union Street, and that is mapped as riparian habitat, which is just grossly in error. I'm given some comfort by the improved outdoor area language. And so my hope is that you'll give people the opportunity to either submit affidavits, or you'll, as part of your aerial imagery analysis, see that people already have improved outdoor areas and map them out of these zones. The other thing that's confusing is on the map, it isn't clear what is considered part of the overlay zone. I'm assuming it's the red line, which is shown as the full area of the GGMA. So there's still a lot of confusion, and I don't think this is ready to move forward. And the biggest piece that seems like a total mess right now is the mapping, and you should spend more time allowing property owners to participate and be mapped out if they qualify for that improved outdoor area exception. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom? That's it. The commission definitely wants to thank everybody for their public comments. And I definitely want to thank Kristen for her presentation and report. And now we will be moving on to our next agenda item. Kristen?
Can I address just one thing?
Yes,
I
please.
realize there's a lot of confusion about the mapping, and that is my fault. The what's getting adopted is just the parcels. So all of the lines and stuff was just to show people how we got to which parcels are going to be mapped as being part of the overlay. It's not going to be used to determine if you're in or out of the GGMA. That'll be determined by doing a site-specific analysis, like a site visit, or looking more closely at each individual parcel. We're not using the mapping that was used to get the parcels to then determine where the Gulch Greenway management area is. That was just purely to get which parcels are implicated and who to send the postcards to. So I'll try to explain that better in the, or maybe just take down that map and just leave up the parcel map so that people don't get confused about that. And I really appreciate everybody's comments, and I encourage everybody to get on the emailing list so that I can continue to notice them.
Thank you, Kristen. And now we will move on to the annual commission report to the council. Jeff, please.
Yes. So, commissioners, we provide an annual report to council, and we are looking at some dates in September. And typically what happens is the commission will come up with topics or bullet points or figure out the content of that, working with city staff. And then you would either multiple commissioners can come and present, and we'll help with all the content creation and information in that, but it needs to come from the commission on what their interest is in presenting challenges. It doesn't have to be all wonderful positive nuggets. It can be, concerns and things that we want to work on and that we're doing. So just want to plant that seed with you. We're looking at a meeting in September. There's 2 council meetings per month. So there's a September 2nd and a September 16th. And then who would be interested in working with staff on that report? Commissioner Stephanie Lane had done that in the past, did a wonderful job. So I want to plant the seed. If we want to make any decisions tonight, we can, or we can bring this back at the next meeting and make a decision. We do need to pick a date so that we can get on agenda, that we can upload all of that information and then work on like a PowerPoint that, like I said, staff would work together with you on. So if there's any interest there from any of our commissioners, let us know, and we can start working on that.
I would volunteer to help with that presentation.
Wonderful.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd love to help with it as well.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
And then if you guys have a preference on the dates, let's think about that. And then we can make it official at the next meeting. How about?
Okay. Does anybody?
Unless we have a preference right now. It's often hard to look at our schedule out there.
When is Labor Day?
So this would be the Tuesday after Labor Day, looks like, the 2nd.
The 2nd is the Tuesday after Labor Day.
Yeah, it's always a Tuesday evening, so
okay.
Labor Day would be the Monday before.
And it's the 2nd and the 18th, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
2nd and the 16th.
2nd and the 16th, sorry, yeah.
I think either of those dates works for me, but I'm open to the anybody else who's going to be helping.
And
what
we
works
can
best
be
for them.
flexible. It's just getting onto the agenda. So we that process happens in department head meetings, and then we need to have it all uploaded at least 1 week prior. So we need to have the report finalized, all of our photographs and things like that. And so another thing to think about maybe for now also is just coming up with the content. What are y'all interested in presenting? What do you want to focus on? And I would say we want it to be a 10 to 15 minute presentation, because there'll be a lot of questions to follow up, and we'll help with all that. We'll be here with you.
So would it help staff if it was on the 16th? Does that give you a little bit more time? Is it that time sensitive for you?
Yeah, definitely. We have enough leeway right now to prepare for it.
Okay.
If something comes up and we're struggling finalizing something, we can push it back. We'll refine the plan as we go, but we want to
Okay.
have a target so that we can start working on that and get that into our calendars and stuff.
Great.
So
And how often would you need to meet with those of us who are volunteering to present?
in the past, I think we met, 2 or 3 times
Okay.
for half an hour. So, or we can communicate through email, a lot of that. So I guess what we'd like to hear from y'all is some, what your content, what are you interested in? So you can email that to us, and then we can finalize the date and make it official and prepare.
Great.
Plus, I like to look at the council agendas. I don't want to put us into something that where it's 11:30 at night and y'all are waiting to do a more positive thing about what's going on with the city. So we do look at those types of things too. So we'll work on all that internally.
Any questions for Jeff on this? Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. No, is there any public comment from Zoom on this item?
You don't have to get public comment unless you're voting on it, so.
Oh, okay. It just said that on here. Okay.
It's okay.
And since we haven't decided on the date, I don't have to present a motion at this time, correct? Okay. And let's move on to the next agenda item. McKay Community Forest Advisory Group. Dennis, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Yeah, just a couple quick items. I mean, pretty much work continues. We're building a trail in there. So it's been really nice though on the Tuesday group with the Humboldt Trails Council, the Volunteer Trail Stewards Program. We're regularly getting 10 to 12 people each time, which is great. These people have bought in, and so it's nice. We have a good labor force out there on that day. And then, of course, on Wednesday, I had the Corton Community High School kids come in, and they've been plugging away too. So we've been getting a lot of nice work done. Most recently, we were working at the Redwood Acres. We're calling it the Redwood Acres Loop Trail right now. It's a trail that circles around Redwood Acres. So some trail rocking projects. As we know, Humboldt County in the winter gets wet and dirt turns to mud. So we've been able to improve sections of that trail. And then 2 more items. We'll have our next Saturday volunteer work day will be Saturday, April 5th. Got the Boy Scouts. We've got 2 Feathers Family Services coming in to help with that one, our partner group. Going to be talking at Florence here in a minute for Big Brothers Big Sisters down the road. But no, that's been working well. And finally, if you guys have been out to the McKay Forest, there's 2 main areas that have been in development right now, let's just say. So Redwood Acres in that area, and then out at Northridge out in Cutton. And the trails out in Cutton have been named and signed. And so there's a subgroup from the advisory group that will be, they're putting together proposals, different names that we're going to vote on for Redwood Acres, so everything's clear for everybody out there. And then hopefully someday we can get this, they have these apps now where you can just plug in and, and read it and you can know where you are with your phone and stuff. So anyway, things are going good. Things are going good.
Commissioners, any comments about that? Thank you, Dennis. Upcoming volunteer opportunities?
So we're kicking into gear here, and spring is here. Lots of volunteer opportunities this month in April. On the 5th, we have our Trash Bash, our bi-monthly, and this will be at the Truesdale Vista Point parking lot area there, an entrance to the trail. On April 12th, we have a compost giveaway. It's going to be offered at the Recology facility out on Samoa on Vance Avenue from 9 a.m. to 12. So come on out and get your compost. We have requirements to provide compost for folks, and so come on out and get some. And then on April 19th, we have our Sequoia Park Ivy League, who Carl is one of our awesome volunteers who's really helpful. And I was thrilled to hear he lives on Ivy Lane. So how awesome. And then so that is going to be from 9 a.m. to 1 on April 19th. And then we have the Easter egg venture right after that at Sequoia Park, 11 to 2.
What was that last one?
The Easter
okay.
egg venture.
Fun.
So come on out and do some ivy pulling, and then come enjoy our park with all the kids.
Commissioners,
and that's it.
Any comments or questions on the upcoming volunteer opportunities? Okay, then we have park.
Real quick, sorry. Can you give me the date on that Ivy one again?
It's April 19th.
19th. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Parks capital projects.
So we're continuing to move along on just things in the process. Highland Park, we have made some headway with the utilities there, and now we're hooked up to electricity. So we're waiting for our panel to get inspected by PG&E so that we can fully operate. And so those will be open, nice unisex restrooms with the snack shack there too. So that'll be open daily by park staff. Carson Park Playground, as we mentioned before, we're working with Kiwanis for their 75th anniversary to do a build it in a day type playground retrofit for Carson Park. And so we are talking with the Kiwanis of Henderson Center, as well as the playground company that has this whole process and program to do this. And so they support it. They're doing some layout so we can choose some different things and then fit it into the budget that they have for Kiwanis. And then, like I said, we'll do a little site prep work in-house, and then we'll do a build it, and we'll get everybody out there like we did at Hammond Park quite a while ago. And then Sequoia Park, we've had we had a concept plan that we've worked with for quite a while, and nothing specific in the realm of like what type of play equipment. And so we have been in contact with another group, Dave Bang Associates, and for Northern California, and they've actually come up to visit, and we've started looking at kind of selecting what we're going to be fundraising for. It's all really nice, natural looking wood structure that kind of complements what we have in the phase 1 there with the natural Robinia wood. So they have some incredible structures. We're still going with the theming of like the towers, bridges, and logs and stuff that you would encounter like in the park. And the skywalk kind of theme there. So, and of course, incorporating our wonderful redwood trees that we have there out front in the upper meadow. So that's all just always a continuing process for us, but so that we can keep these projects lined up and fundraising, so when these opportunities come, we can grab them. So that is my report for capital.
Any comments?
Yeah, I have a question, Jeff. So for Carson Park, is it going to fit into the existing footprint, or is it going to change the conceptual plan that you've got there?
No, it's going to fit into that footprint there, and then we want to keep some of the items there. So the swing sets, I'm not sure what we're going to be able to afford with the donation, and so I don't want to like plan on eliminating everything and then we lose a swing set or something, because people really enjoy the swings, and me too. And and then there's a lot of specific requirements for spatial areas for play areas, and swings take up a lot actually. But we work with our designer and the certified playground inspector, which I used to be one. And so I kind of have a lot of those things in my mind when we're looking at stuff, which helps preemptively. But yeah, it's going to be in that same footprint. And then what we'll also need to work on is some accessible things. So there's like a bumpy asphalt thing with tree roots in it. We need to make it clear, accessible points to the play areas, and so. But surfacing, we are looking at like a wood fiber, playground wood fiber, which is accessible, but we want to get people to those entry points. So there'll be a little bit of considerations for that. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Jeff, for that. And now we will move on to the Recreation Revenue Summary for February 2025. Are there any questions or comments from the Commission on the Recreation Revenue Report? And is there any public comment on this item? And anyone on Zoom? And since there's no public comment, do we have a motion to accept the February 2025 Revenue Report?
I do have a question.
Okay.
First. So the community classes, they saw a significant increase. So I thought maybe this would.
Mike?
So the community classes, they saw an increase, a significant in comparison to other years. Can you guys brag about that or tell us a little bit about what went into play?
Yeah, totally. So a few programs have really taken off. Toddler sports being one of the main ones. It's filling up with a full wait list every time we're promoting that program. So that one has taken off and soared this year. Additionally, we're hosting a watercoloring clinic for adults in April, so that could be also associated to that increase. More break camps, which I'm not sure if they were going into the community classes or not, but yes, those are a couple of the programs that are really taking off right now and hitting a community need.
We're striving to offer more through our different facilities, even like looking at how do we reprogram facilities like the Adorney Center specifically, and how, and then utilizing things like the Muni. As Jim's going to present in a little bit, our toddler classes have taken off, and it's the cutest thing ever. So.
Well, I'll hold the rest of my questions for your presentation.
All right.
I do want to comment that we hit our 105% at the end of February, so we're doing good.
Hey. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll move to accept the revenue report.
I second.
Please vote.
Aye.
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 And the motion passes, and we've accepted the revenue report. Now, staff reports.
All right. As I alluded to, I'd like to introduce Jim Thomas, our recreation supervisor. He is going to give us a quick report on what's going on in recreation.
Let's see if this thing works. Cool. Our magician. All right, let's give this a try. See if it's. It is on. Oh, there we go. Yep. Okay, great. At the computer. Great. Awesome. Thanks. Good evening, OSPR Commission. I'm honored to be here tonight to give an update on the happenings in recreation. And just before I get going, as I was reviewing this report for myself, it just reminded me, the day in and day out value of recreation and how we have the ability to enhance the sense of community and, build quality of life. And providing these outlets for play leads to better individuals, which ultimately leads to a better society. So as we're going through this, it's just kind of wanted to start with that sentiment of what we get to do. So our Hoopsters youth basketball program is getting close to the numbers it had for enrollment prior to the pandemic. So in 2019, we had 320 participants, and we're seeing an increase each year. We're up to 270 this year, which is great to see those numbers climbing again. And also just a great opportunity to shout out volunteer coaches that have made this program run for decades. It's a selfless act to go out there and, unpaid, go coach a bunch of kids every weekend. So just a great opportunity to share the appreciation for those folks that do that. Next, we have been seeing a really good turnout for our adult volleyball league. There's been, in the winter season here, we've had 18 teams in 2 divisions, and it's a great outlet to just focus on something, bump, set, and spike for the night. So it's good to see that sense of community, and the teams are having a lot of fun there. Our pickleball community is definitely rallying. We have had a lot of successes with pickleball. There's a tournament that we hosted at the Adorney Center, had 37 teams through a 2-day weekend. We're consistently seeing 20 to 30 folks show up for drop-in, and we are planning to run a league next year, which will expand on our menu of adult sports leagues. So I'm really looking forward to providing that for the pickleball community, because they show up in numbers every time. Our skate nights here. We did not have skate nights in the month of January, but we are back in February and March and moving forward. And we're seeing an average of 75 people per night at skate nights. And we're adding some theme nights, Easter, Halloween, and back to school, just to name a few. And I just really like this picture of the dynamic duo on the left there, learning how to skate. We had the walkers there, so it's accessible for all people who maybe aren't quite comfortable without the support. So it's really nice to see those kind of pictures. And then the picture on the right's a little dark, but it is, we turn the lights down low and turn the disco ball on for the night. So that's kind of that picture there. Our break camps have been getting great attendance. They have filled up every time we have hosted them. Thanksgiving break camp, President's break camp, and spring break camp all reach their full enrollment. They always have a really fun theme. And I just really appreciated these pictures that our staff captured. On the left is balloon volleyball, and all the kids lined up, super focused, engaged, and having a good time. And then on the right, this was from our Thanksgiving break camp Cooks Who Care. There's our community services activities coordinator, Chloe, teaching a kiddo how to crack an egg for the first time, I believe. So leaving the Cooks Who Care camp with some new skills that maybe they took home with them. We've been hosting also for the break camps, we have a basketball option, a Globetrotter basketball clinic. It's a partnership with T180 Health and Wellness. And the gentleman, Damon Edwards, who's leading the group right there, was a former Globetrotter. So he brings a really unique skill set, enthusiastic energy to the table for those events, and it's been a great partnership. And the kids go home very happy, but also very tired after one of his days of basketball. So that's really been a fun success there. And here's our toddler sports. We have baseball, or excuse me, tiny t-ball, bitty basketball, soccer, and a fitness fusion class, which is a dance and gymnastics class. We are consistently filling those up. It's 20 kids per session, and it's great to just see the engagement from the kids. I really appreciate the picture on the left there. All the pictures, of course, but I thought that was a particularly cute moment to capture. And it's really cool, too, because the parents get out there and play and get involved. They're giving each other high fives, and it really builds an opportunity for parents to meet other parents with kids that age, and give the kids a place to be that's fun and just active. So I'm going to pivot here away from the program specifics and share just some cross-department efforts, specifically with the zoo. Recreation gets to host OTB in that shared space with the zoo, OTB, outside the box after-school program. And it provides a unique experience for the kids, which, they get to see the zoo animals, go on the skywalk, and just have a different setting from the school after school program. So it's nice to see the kiddos out there with that. We've also worked with the zoo, helping staff the Zoo Light holiday events that they hosted, which is always great to collaborate with them. And then upcoming here, we have Forest Moon Festival, which is a collaborative effort with the zoo and recreation. We've worked with them on that event the last couple of years, and it's been a big success, and we're excited for another one. So we put out our recreation survey in September, and so far we have gotten 974 takes on it, which is just great to see that community input. We will be revisiting this topic. I think I'll be coming back to do a presentation specifically on the results. We got the opportunity to work with the Humboldt County Office of Education to translate it also into Spanish, so that way we can get that feedback that represents, the entire population of Eureka. And I think there's going to be a lot of value that comes out of this survey. Something that we can maybe implement immediately, something that we maybe implement long term. But it's going to be great to review that when we close the survey here in a couple of months. And I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our staff for extraordinary efforts. Catherine Cunningham, Community Services Coordinator. She's been a great addition to the team in September 2023. We're glad she chose Eureka as a place to land and move to. She brings a lot of enthusiasm, passion, and has kind of taken the youth programs and added her flair to it, and definitely infused it with some new fresh energy, which is great to be working with her. So shout out to Catherine for all of her efforts. And what's next? We've got a lot of cool things coming up here in the coming months. April 7th through the 11th, we have 3 different break camps going. Under the Sea Spring Break Camp, that one's already reached its full enrollment. We're still accepting enrollment for Youth Skate Camp and the Youth Basketball Clinic as well. So those will be really fun, safe space for kids to just get out and play. Here is our Easter egg venture on April 19th at Sequoia Park from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there will be a special guest appearance by the Easter Bunny and lots of treats, prizes, and eggs. We are still accepting enrollment for an adult watercolor workshop class. Part of this was sparked actually by the recreation survey. We did take a quick glance at it. We haven't completely digested all the information from it yet, but there was some feedback in that survey about opportunities for adults that maybe don't have kids. And so we floated this workshop here, and it's 2 of the sessions are already full, and a couple more are still accepting enrollment. So it was exciting to see that feedback from the survey directly implemented and people following through and showing up. So that'll be a really fun thing around the corner and something different. Community services staff has been working with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to stock the Sequoia Park Pond, and we have a really special kids fishing day coming up on April 26th. This will be one of 2 this year. The other will be for Get Out and Play Day, but it's free entry. We'll have staff there to help tie those tricky knots, and it will be stocked with rainbow trout from a local hatchery here. So definitely going to be a really fun day, and if it's anything like Get Out and Play Day last year, everybody had a blast. It was great to see that. And I don't have a promotional package together for this yet, but this is a picture from Forest Moon Festival last year. Forest Moon Festival will be May 31st this year. We're still working on some of the logistics, but save that date, May 31st for Forest Moon Festival. Last year, we were honored to have Senator McGuire come host our costume contest. So that was some great recognition of the fun things going on at the park that day. And also upcoming here, we have the softball program, which has been a staple program for adult sports for decades in Eureka. We're accepting registration starting in mid-April. And previously, last year, we had 21 teams, and I'd love to see us get to that number again this year. And it's a really fun way to spend an evening, getting your team together. And summer camp's right around the corner. This is a picture from last year. We hosted a barbecue with the kiddos, and same thing, still waiting on the promotional package to come together for this, but we're going to launch here hopefully in a couple of weeks, some information out to the public, and we'll have 40 free spots and then some paid spots as well. So it's great to offer that to the community and provide that fun space at Sequoia Park and Cooper Gulch Park for the kiddos to be over the summer. And of course, we have, I know it's in July, but it's going to be here before we know it. We have Get Out and Play Day, so save the date, July 26th. This is, very partner and community-driven event where there's free recreation all over the city of Eureka, and it can't happen without all the amazing partners that we work with to put this on. So, amazing selfless folks help us with this. It's going to be a really cool day, and last year was our 10th anniversary, so we're going to see what we can do for another year. So with that, I'm just excited to see how the team can continue to grow and continue to make meaningful contributions to the community and just continue to make that impact like I was stating at the beginning of the presentation here, and just excited for where it's going to go and wanted to turn it over to y'all for any questions that you might have.
Well, I have a comment. First of all, I love your enthusiasm. And it looks like we're going to have plenty material for our presentation to the City Council.
All right.
Lots to choose from there.
Great.
Any other comments or questions for Jim?
Thanks.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Sweet.
Thank you, Jen. That was great.
Thank
It
you.
was.
Seriously.
Okay. And
I also wanted to just say thank you because your leadership, I mean, you've been in part of the team for a long time, but you've been leading for about 18 months. Has it been that?
Just about right. Yep.
So thank you for your leadership. We've seen revenues maintain and grow. To be at 105% already is such a great accomplishment. And so we're grateful for where you guys are and where you're going with your team. And I know you lead by example. Get Out and Play Day was one of your originals.
Ooh, no.
No.
That was actually Stevie. That's
Yeah.
one of our
Yeah.
long-term employees, but that
it's original
grew,
to our area,
and
too.
yes, it's our concept. But I know Jim has grown it and continue. You know, the enthusiasm is why we picked Jim. So.
It's contagious.
It is.
And I also want to say I've been really enjoying, I've been doing the line dancing classes at the Adorney, and it's so nice to have things that are good for seniors like me. And it's great to gather with other seniors doing something that's just fun and lighthearted. And it's just been a great opportunity to, join in on that.
Yeah, I enjoy peeking in there, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna. I have it on my calendar to come and
it's
attend
fun.
that class too, and see what kind of moves I've got.
It's the easy stuff.
Yeah.
If I can do it, you can do it.
Awesome.
I joined the Adorney last month, and to go use the fitness equipment, I found myself thinking about buying a rower, a rowing erg. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, and it's lovely down there. What a nice facility, and the weight room and everything. It's much more appealing to me than the conventional style gyms.
Yes.
So it is. It's very nice.
I
Thanks.
agree.
Thank you for
So
that.
if you could tell us how partners can join in the 11th year of your Get Out and Play Day.
Yeah, they can. We do a lot of outreach, but they can also. If anyone wanted to contact me directly, I could get you my email and phone number. But yeah, we do a lot of outreach to partners from previous years, and then we brainstorm at the table, like, who else could we add to this to make this day special? So, but yeah, I could definitely provide my contact information to you.
If there's ideas and people that want to volunteer that day, that's what we've always been striving for every year is diversify, get to the waterfront, from the bay to the zoo, utilize our trails, things like that. So if you have ideas and you want to volunteer, hit us up.
And I'll just extend that invite past Get Out on Play Day. Any fresh ideas from the commission are very welcome for me. I like to think of new ideas and brainstorm those with people and see how we can take an idea and make it a plan and then actually do it. So
Great. Anything else?
I have two little things before we're done with our reports.
That's fine.
Perilous Plunge is this Saturday. Come on down. If you're not jumping in the water, come watch the people do it. It's great. And it's at the foot of F Street on Saturday. It's quite if you've never seen it, it's I think it starts at 10. It starts early.
That'll be cool.
11? Okay. You might want to get there at 10 just to I know they have Bloody Marys and some other goodies. And it's teams that get sponsorships, and it's to sponsor the Discovery Museum, and it's really funny and quite good photo ops, especially if you have friends jumping in. And then you may have heard we put out a press release yesterday about we got a new bear.
Yay!
So
Bear.
we got a new bear. The bear is here. Came last week. She's happy and just gonna take a little while to get used to her new environment. Our exhibit and area is significantly larger than her previous. So I mean, on the scale, maybe 20 times larger. And so we have a lot of area. The requirements are that she stays in a quarantine for a month before she comes out, and then but staff is already like getting, interacting with her, and she was named by the Bear River Band of Runnerville Rancheria, which is kind of in our contract with them, and so they came up with the name. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Ishŭng, Ishŭng, and I believe that means that likes to eat. And so when you see her, you'll know why they named her that. But it's going to be exciting because she's going to get to exist in this beautiful habitat, and we'll see the health benefits and things of our well-designed enclosures, as well as our excellent staff that we have at the zoo. And next month we will be getting a report from our zoo director on all things zoo. So that'll be exciting, and we'll have more updates on our new treasure there.
Okay. So if there's no other business, then the next regular meeting on April 24th, 2025 is 6 p.m. in Council Chambers at Eureka City Hall. And our meeting is now adjourned at 7:41. This is the longest meeting I've ever been to. My first one. Yeah. My first meeting, and I have all the public comments.